All right, everybody. Good evening to the July 1st, 2024 Jackson Township Planning Board meeting. This meeting of the Jackson Township Planning Board has been convened in accordance with the provisions of the Open Public Meeting Act and in accordance with the adequate notice provisions, and all forms and avenues have been provided in the appropriate measures. Madam Chairman?
I'd like to open by welcoming a new member, Fred Weingart. Raise your hand. You can wave. Happy to have you. We'll have a vote for the voucher for the recording secretary, please.
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approval of the minutes for June 17th, regular meeting. A roll call, please.
Let's do roll call. Mr. Brezzi?
Yes.
Mr. Bernstein?
Yes.
Mr. Marzo?
Yes.
We're just doing roll call.
Here.
No. Just
That's okay.
Mr. Heller? Mr. Riker?
Here.
Ms. Rose? Mr. Tremor? Mr. Weingart? Mr. Wall?
Here.
Mr. Sullivan? And Dr. Campbell.
Here. All right. Now, approval of the minutes with a roll call.
Do we get a motion?
By the motion, please.
Second Riker.
Okay. Mr. Brezzi?
Yes.
Mr. Bernstein?
Yes.
Mr. Marzo?
Yes.
Mr. Heller?
Yes.
Mr. Riker?
Yes.
Mr. Tremor?
Yes.
Mr. Wall? And Dr. Campbell.
Yes, and I don't think there are any resolutions.
No.
Thank you. Changes to the agenda schedule. Block 801, lots 62 and 63, 394 Chandler Holdings LLC carried from tonight, July 1st to August 19th with no notice required. Should we vote on them one at a time or all three is fine? Block 2603, Lot 5 and 22 Jackson Mills Business Park carry from July 15th to October 7th with no notice required. Block 1204, Lot 34, 922 Hyson LLC moved from October 7th, 2024 to July 15th, 2024 with notice required. May I have a motion to accept those changes?
So moved, Riker.
Second, Heller.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Master plan report, please, Ms. DeMarza.
Good evening. On Monday, June 24th, 2024, from 4 to 6 p.m., the Master Plan Subcommittee met with Ocean County engineers to discuss future road improvements in Jackson and how to implement this into the forthcoming master plan. This will be an ongoing process. The idea and comment webpage remains open to the public. Your thoughts and insights are welcome and appreciated. Thank you.
Gentlemen, any engineering and planning matters? Thank you. Legal matters?
None at this time.
Okay. Then, Mr. Alfieri, I think we can begin. And we'll start with Mr. Klee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A continuation of a preliminary and final site plan application for a 4,400 square foot, two-story non-medical office building. The application does require several variances. We had some testimony on the 23rd of February. That's all for now.
Mr. Peters.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our latest report dated June 26th of this year. The applicant's located in the LC Limited Commercial Zone. They are, in fact, a permitted use. They should provide us with some testimony with regards to what's being proposed on the site. As Mr. Klee had indicated, the site itself is undersized. So when you put all the setback requirements on the property, there's very little you can do with it. However, that perhaps being a hardship, they should also reconcile the variances they're looking for with the intensity of development that they're proposing. I see Mr. McFarland here, so we're going to get engineering and planning testimony. We should also get some testimony with regards to the emergency access and how we're going to keep it to just emergency access. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Salvatore Alfieri, Cleary, Giacobbe, Alfieri, and Jacobs on behalf of the applicant. This application, as originally filed, did not include one of the lots that are before you this evening. When we were getting ready for a prior hearing, we realized that the property owner owned a lot that was contiguous to this. I just handed to the board attorney buy-sell letters that we've sent to the contiguous property owners in an effort to either acquire land or sell land to try and make the lot more conforming. There were four adjacent property owners. One happened to be my client. So we revised the plan, incorporated that additional lot into the application that's before you tonight. As it relates to the three non-applicant contiguous property owners, we have not received a response to the buy-sell letters, but we should have them marked at least so that they are in evidence, Mr. Shea, if you don't mind.
All right. Ms. Board Secretary, if you want to mark these three letters as A1, 2, and, or we just do A1 through all three.
And thank you. We have two witnesses present and the applicant, in case the board members have questions of the applicant, but Graham McFarland is our engineer and planner, and Scott Kennel is our traffic expert. And we're starting with Graham.
Okay.
All right. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right. Please state your name and spell your last for the record.
Sure, it's Graham McFarlane, MacFarlane, professional engineer, professional planner, previously recognized by this board.
We've seen you once or twice. And
Thank you.
You're going to be testifying as an engineer and a planner?
Correct.
Yes. Thank you. Graham, you did submit.
Hang on, the board accepts your credentials?
Yes, thank you. Happy
Thank
to
you.
see you again.
Thank you.
And you did submit in advance of tonight's hearing the exhibits that you're going to be referring to. Is that correct?
Yes, we did. We did submit 3 exhibits. In addition, I can see that the site plan set that we had submitted is up on the screen right now. So since that's up on the screen, we can just kind of go through that real quick. I'll explain the context of the application, give a board a good understanding of what the project is. You can see we have the cover sheet up on the screen, which shows the location of the property. It's a series of existing lots that will be consolidated into one new tax lot. In total, the land area of the project encompasses just over a half an acre. It's about 23,000 plus or minus square feet. The existing lot does, of course, create some challenges for development in accordance with ordinance requirements. The existing lot is located along Brewers Bridge Road in the limited commercial zone. The lot only has a frontage of just over 100 feet, about 103 feet on Brewers Bridge Road, and actually about 80 feet on the back side of the lot, which is a paper street known as Louise Street. You can go to the next sheet for me, please. So in the next sheet, you can see the site plan that we have prepared and submitted in support of the application. It shows the proposed building footprint in the in that beige color in the middle of the sheet. We're proposing a 2-story office building with a total floor area of just under 4,400 square feet. As Mr. Peters alluded, the geometry of the existing lot does create some challenges because it does not conform to the lot size requirements, the lot width, or the lot frontage requirements. So we are asking for relief of those conditions related to the application. You can see that we have located the building closer to Brewers Bridge Road as opposed to locating it way in the back of the property. When we designed this project, we kicked around several ideas, and I frankly felt very strongly that it was better to have the building located closer to the street to create what I felt was a much more aesthetically pleasing streetscape, instead of throwing that parking up in the front and then having the building pushed back. The last thing we need is to have more sites where we just see parking and a building which is going to be nicely designed and proportioned, sitting way in the back. So we felt it was appropriate to locate this building in the front portion of the site, even though it does require front setback relief. And you can see on this plan, we do have a front setback proposed of just a touch over 25 feet, where the ordinance does require a 50-foot setback. But again, when we tried to work out some layouts and some arrangements, we were ending up with parking that was either divided half and half, or it was in the front and the building way in the back. And frankly, I just feel this is a much better design solution and much more aesthetically pleasing. So that's why we're asking for that particular relief. The building will have 5 parking spaces located underneath the first floor. You can see them. Where is it? Right there. So there are 5 parking spaces that will be covered by the second floor of the building. They go partially under the building. The remainder of the other 17 parking spaces will be back behind the building. So we have a total of 22 parking spaces provided, plus we get the bonus credit for the 1 EV. So we have credited to 23 parking spaces, which does comply with ordinance requirements. The one other variance we're asking for, which is not related to the hardship created by the lot size or the inability to obtain additional property, relates to impervious coverage. We are asking for 63% lot coverage, where 60% is required. As you look at the plan, you can see on the left side of the building, there is a fire access lane that comes back out to Brewers Bridge Road. Based upon reviews we got from the fire department, that is what they have asked us for. They originally had indicated they would accept grass pavers. Then they came back and said they wanted the fire access lane paved, and they wanted 20 feet wide. My personal opinion, I think they're both a little bit excessive, but we're trying to accommodate their request. And when we change that from grass paver, to the paved access, we're again about 3% over, which on this particular lot is about a 600 square foot increase in impervious. In any event, I would really consider that a de minimis variance request, but the relief is required, nonetheless.
Mr. Peters mentioned at the beginning, how were we going to limit that emergency access to emergency access only?
Yes, of course, that's a very valid point, because as we look at this plan, right now, somebody could enter the site, pull around a building, and come out the other driveway, and we certainly want to protect against that. So we'll work with the fire department to provide whatever type of gate or locking system that they want, so that can only be accessible to emergency vehicles. We also had submitted a couple of exhibits, one of which was the architectural rendering. Maybe we can get that one up, and we'll just show the building. So there we have an exhibit that we had called A3, which was the architectural rendering that was submitted and prepared by the architect in support of this application. You can see the 2-story building. I guess it's mostly going to be concrete and glass construction. As you look at the top illustration, that shows looking at the side of the building where the cars would be parked. So where you see those those shadow figures, those are the parking spaces where those cars would be parked. And then you see 2 other perspectives of the building, showing the front and then showing kind of what would be the back right corner of the building as well. You can see that we are proposing 2 signs for the building, one on the front facade and one on the side facade. I do believe that does require relief, so we are asking for that to provide for clear building identification for any motorists and anybody who may be visiting the premises. We also have our main identification sign located 10 feet back from the right-of-way, where your ordinance does require 25 feet. So we're asking for that relief as well. I have certainly testified to that one many times before this board, and am of the strong opinion that having the signs located a little bit closer to the street to make them more visible again to motorists and people coming to the building is a better design, and that's why we are asking for that relief, to have the sign located closer to the street. Mr. Peters also points out a little anomaly in your ordinance, where the ordinance clearly indicates in what zone signs are permitted. And unfortunately, the sign ordinance does not, frankly, permit any signs in the limited commercial zone. So we're asking for that relief to allow for a sign, this ground-mounted sign to be constructed in the limited commercial zone. Of course, that is in the interest of public safety, providing for clear identification of the building, and I think it certainly advances that particular purpose.
Can we focus on the size of the building? There's a discrepancy between the statement of operations and then the plans themselves. What's the correct square footage?
Well, we have 4,388 square feet on our plan. I think the architect had 4,384 square feet. The statement of operations, frankly, said approximately 4,400 square feet. To me, they're all one and the same. Whatever the final product ends up being, it's to me a totally insignificant difference. But of course, we'll cross that T and dot that I during resolution compliance.
All right, continue.
We had also submitted, of course, landscaping plans and lighting plans in support of the application. They are included in the plan set, and we're not seeking any relief related to those particular requirements. That's just a survey. We don't need to look at that. Of course, we do have review letters from both of the professionals referring to Mr. Klee's letter dated June 28th first. Of course, he discusses a project, identifies the property and the proposed use. He identifies a variance that we are requesting, which we've already had some discussion on, including the setback of the sign, gives some findings of fact about the application. Mr. Klee asks about the need for a loading zone, and we would stipulate that for a building of this size and this use, a loading zone is not proposed and not required.
And while we're talking about potential uses or tenants, the parking calculations were done based upon general office, not medical. Is that correct?
Well, it's based upon, in this particular zone, which is frankly one of my least favorite zones in the whole town, is based upon the standard of professional office, which is clearly defined by the Jackson ordinance. This zone is very limited in what it does allow. It only allows 5 or 6, maybe 7 different uses. When you look at other zones in the town, neighborhood commercial, highway commercial zones, they allow 20 and 30 and 40 different uses. This zone is very restrictive in what it allows. Anyhow, we're here at the planning board applying for what is deemed professional office by local ordinance. If that were to change, if there was some impetus to change that to medical office, my client understands he'd probably have to come back before this board and have that discussion. As of
Mr.
right now, though,
McFarland,
we're seeking
do
the
you
professional
have any-
office.
Are there any color considerations on that office building? I only saw black and white.
I'm going to defer to our client for that. If he's willing to speak to that, I'm going to leave that to him,
All right.
because I haven't been provided any color information yet. Mr. Klee did ask about additional landscaping along Brewers Bridge Road, and we would agree to comply that as long as it doesn't impact, of course, the emergency access or any site triangle, site visibility requirements. And then he has some technical comments that we would agree to comply with as part of resolution compliance.
Mr. McFarland, the height of that building, it seems awfully tall for a 2-story building.
No, it's going to satisfy, I can give you the numbers real quick. It is a 2-story building of slab-on-grade construction. What the architectural plan indicates is that the top of the parapet is going to be 30 feet. So that's within the building code. Actually, the highest point where the signage is, that goes up to 34.5 feet. So that even by itself is still below.
40. Right.
And again, the ordinance is measured to the flat part of the roof, doesn't even include the parapet technically. So the roof height is actually 26 feet, 4-foot parapet above. It is kind of high for
Deceiving, isn't it?
well, it's intuitive because it is kind of high for a 2-story building, but it creates that extra volume in the floors and creates a feeling of additional space. So I know that's why the architect and the client chose to propose a building with that height and with that particular scale. So anyway, it does comply with ordinance requirements and not seeking any relief related to building height.
And in terms of stormwater management, I know there were many technical comments in the report, but you agreed you'd comply with them, but it does comply with the stormwater management regulations?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, continue.
That's okay. And then, of course, we also have a letter from Mr. Peters dated June 26th of 2024. He also provides informational comments, summarizes the variances, of course, the existing non-conformances and the ones that are proposed. And we don't take any exception to what he has identified in his report. Of course, he points out that the sign is not permitted in the LC zone, which I have discussed. Mr. Peters does question whether there will or will not be an elevator in the building. As a two-story building of the size proposed, there is no building code requirement for an elevator to be provided, so it is not proposed at this time. Mr. Peters, of course, talks about the signage requirements, which we've had some discussion on. He had also asked us to take a look at relocating the accessible parking space or closer to the building, and we'll agree to do that. Maybe we can get it to one of those spaces underneath that second floor. If it doesn't impact the building size, we would agree to make that change. We talked about satisfying the fire department to try to, of course, to limit access to the emergency access lane.
Mr. McFarland, hang on one second.
I just want to remind the residents that we have moved the Chandler application from tonight until August the 19th. For anyone who might be here, it has been postponed. I just thought I'd save you from having to sit through some things you might not be that interested in. You're very welcome. We weren't notified. No one was notified. We just about got notification ourselves. Things change. That's the nature of the planning board. Thank you. Save you some time. Have a good evening. I'm sorry.
That's okay. If I could get Exhibit A1 up on the screen real quick. No, the aerial map.
Other way.
There you go. Exhibit A1 we had prepared was an aerial map, and kind of gone out of order, but shows the location of the site. Just want to talk about for 1 second, because Mr. Peters had asked about whether buffering is required along these property lines, because buffering is required by ordinance alongside and rear property lines that abut properties zoned for residential use. All of these surrounding properties here are zoned are in the same zone, in the LC zone. However, when one looks at the zoning map, because these lots are so narrow and so small, the zoning map actually becomes like a big blob, and the color looks like frankly looks like a different color than what zone the property is in. But I'm here testifying that all of the adjacent properties are within this LC zone, so there is no buffering required in accordance with ordinance requirements.
How many lots are you consolidating?
I think it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 7 lots being
7 lots,
consolidated.
okay.
Yes.
Wow.
Into one lot, which again, unfortunately, is still not going to comply with area requirements, but it's the best that, frankly, it's the best that we can
nature
do.
of the, yes.
And then Mr. Peters had some comments about lighting and landscaping and solid waste, and we'll agree to address those particular comments.
Considering the signage, you have 3 signs as of now. One on the front, one on the side, and one on the street. What about a street sign that goes this way so that you'd only have 2 signs instead of 3 signs? Now, I think it's attractive to have them on the building, but there are rules.
There are, again, my opinion is that having the identification on the building for motorists coming from either direction, I think is helpful. I think it provides clear indication of what the building is and where it is. So in my opinion, it makes good sense to have it.
Then
We
do you
are
need-
asking for that relief, just again, based upon the number of signs, I believe. They will conform to the area requirements in the ordinance.
Then do you need a ground sign? I mean, it's visible.
I think we do because the ground sign will show the individual tenants, whether the building has 2 or 3 or 4 tenants. The ground signage would indicate, ABC company, XYZ company on the particular ground sign. I don't anticipate the individual tenants' names, they are not going to be on the building mounted signage, they would be on the ground sign.
Mr. Riker?
Would you be amenable to having the ground sign in the back of the building? That's where you're going to park, that's where you're going to walk in. I agree with you. I do favor the new style of signage on the building. I think it's smart, it's idiot-proof, but I think your customer is better served with that individual tenant sign on the back of the building somewhere.
Well, I personally think it's important to have that on the street for motorists who are approaching.
Okay, so we'll work on that one. That's a dot. Not a check, but a dot.
Well, unfortunately, we don't agree on everything,
That's okay,
but that's why we're here. That's why we're here
It
talking
just
about
seems
it.
overkill to have 3 signs. It's an awful lot. It's such a small lot anyway.
Okay.
It just seems overkill.
So the big bite, if you recall the project down on the corner where the jug handle is, we worked on that building. That building was presented to the board without an elevator. If you followed that train of thought that I had there, would the applicant be amenable to installing an elevator if the board was to bend a little bit on the building footprint to allow an external staircase enclosed in clear glass or what have you, so that wouldn't be a detriment to your use? The elevator would be the benefit, and you would have that auxiliary staircase to be compliant. Seeing that it would be a non-simultaneous use, I don't think it's an egregious.
We can discuss that with the applicant. I mean, our position coming in was that we're going to do whatever the building code requires, and obviously it's not required here, but I understand your
it,
point.
but in my opinion, it's a better marketable building for your client, and at the same rate, it's a fully compliant building with ADA, whatnot. And I think my colleagues might bend a little for the non-simultaneous use square footage that we've picked up on a few other projects where I've suggested this.
Yeah, it's just, it's a significant expense for a building of this size. It's so small,
Well,
but-
it's a benefit as well.
All right, well, when Mr. Kennel comes up to speak, we can speak to our client and cover a few of the questions that have come up so
Okay.
far.
Thank you.
And there are 2 other reports, Graham, that we need to touch on. Did you finish Ernie's report?
I believe I did.
Okay. There's the fire report from June, and then CME's landscape report.
Yes, and I've already had some discussion about the fire department. We've had a couple rounds with them. They issued a current report, and of course, we'll agree to address their comments and also, again, work with them on providing the proper gate to protect or maintain the emergency access lane.
And then the CME LTE report.
Yes, we'll comply with the comments of the tree specialist.
And then I know you described the variances and the fact that there's a hardship, but can you finish the planning testimony about whether there's any impact on the master plan or zone plan or any negative
Well,
impact?
If you could, just so we can have a clear record, just put the legal test on the record. Let's identify, we're identifying them as C1, right?
Yes.
C1 hardship variances.
Correct.
And then just go right down the line. Let's just make the record very clear.
Correct. So we have non-conformances, which are lot area, lot width, and lot frontage, which all are, I think, very easily satisfy the test as hardships. The client had sent letters to adjoining property owners in an attempt to bring the property more into conformance and did not get any positive feedback. So the lot exists in the configuration that it exists, and that satisfies the grant of the variance for those hardship reasons. All of the other variances that are requested for the application that relate to the, the setback of the sign, the front yard setback, the side yard setback, the lot coverage, the parking side setback, all relate to an application that complies with the recommendations of the master plan. It promotes a new commercial rateable, promotes economic development. That point is discussed several times in the master plan. So I think this application satisfies the test for those particular variances. I don't believe there's any negative impact created by these variances since this project is so small in nature of only 4,400 square feet. You can see by looking at the aerial that there are no adjoining uses that are currently occupied. So again, none of those variances rise to create any negative impact to any adjoining property owners. So I think they each satisfy the test for grant of those variances.
Thank you. That's all we have of Graham.
I'll ask my usual solar question,
The building will be constructed to accommodate solar. And
but
then
not install.
it's market driven. We'll have to see how things are.
But it will be possible to,
Correct.
thank you. Any questions? Mr. Tremor?
First, I'll clarify your fire department comment. That area where you are looking to build, their fire truck is upwards of 90,000 pounds. That's why they're requiring it. You're shoehorning a big building in a little spot, and there really is barely any turning radius in there. So when you take a truck like that and you're trying to jack it around a corner and put it down, we don't need to roll over a $2 million truck. So that's why they're pushing kind of hard, because it's been an oversight that's being corrected at this point. So it's not that they're picking on you. It's for the safety of the firefighters and to actually get proper placement to protect your building. So that's why you're getting that. I know it hurts, but everybody's going to be dealing with the same thing in this town from this point on. The parking underneath the building, is that going to have sprinklers?
No.
Has that been addressed by the fire department or?
Well, they have reviewed the plans that we've submitted to date, and they have not commented on that. I did discuss the question of sprinklers actually with the architect today, and the architect did advise me that for a building of this type, the threshold is basically about 9,000 square feet where sprinklers are required. So the information I got was that sprinkler system is not required for this building of approximately 4,400 square feet. We do have, we do have public water service. So, and we do have a fire hydrant proposed on site as the fire department has requested. So if any conditions change or if that interpretation changes and there is a need for sprinklers, they of course would be provided in accordance with the building code. But as of right now, I don't believe they're required.
I'm not asking if they're required. I mean, you might want to protect your building. You doing any EV parking spots
We have one EV parking space.
in that area?
It is, no, it's a little further back. We don't have the site plan up there, but it's the first space in the, it's the first
Okay, I see.
space
All right.
in the parking area.
Well, I mean, I think it's something that should go back to the fire official and let them look at it because
Well,
It's
we'll
probably
comply
something-
with the requirements of the building code, whatever those requirements are. Code official, fire sub-code official, we're fully comply with the building code requirements.
no, I'm not saying you wouldn't. I'm sure you would. What is the occupancy of this building?
I don't have the answer to that question. That is, again, is dictated by building code, and this building is going to comply with that criteria.
So how are you calculating your septic system if you don't know the occupancy?
That's based upon the square footage of the building.
Has this
By
been-
the state code that dictates the design requirements for a septic system, it's based upon the square footage of the building, not by the number of people or the occupancy in a building as derived by the building code. They're totally different, approach to how things are designed Septic design is based upon square footage of the building.
Right, but you could actually overwhelm your septic system if you put too many people in there. But does this go to the state or the county for that, any type of approval?
This goes to the Ocean County Health Department for the septic system, and an application has already been submitted.
Okay.
Okay.
Very good.
Chair, I have a question on the, another
Yeah.
one, I'm sorry. Just want to understand our current sign ordinance. As this one, they're looking for a variance, this is for our planners, our engineer. They're looking for a variance for the sign? The sign? Okay. If there were no variance applied for on the application, what would the signage look like? Would there be a sign on the building? The applicant can answer it too, which whomever.
There's a section of the sign ordinance that indicates that ground-mounted or monument signs would not be permitted in this zone. So building-mounted signage would still be permitted.
So where it says hashtag, hashtag, hashtag Brewers Bridge, that's currently permitted? That's what I'm trying to understand. Where it says building name, is that currently?
Ernie, ordinance only allows one sign on the building, correct?
Correct.
Right. So, Mr. Wa- if I could jump in, Mr.
I'm sorry, but the facade is allowed to have a certain percentage of signage.
What, does that exceed the percentage?
No, the area will comply with ordinance requirements. It's the number of signs, because the ordinance says that each principal building may have one wall sign. We have what we believe are frankly two wall signs, one on the front and one on the side.
So at what point is it a sign or an advertisement? When the sign ordinances are they designed for identification so folks can see where the building is? And which would also be accomplished by having a logo or some other device at the top. Like even very tall buildings in metro areas, Edison, Islin, going up the turnpike, you see huge buildings with very small, relatively speaking. And so here you have this, that's why I'm just wondering if this is by variance, because it dominates. So at what point is it an advertisement rather than a sign if you're trying to do wayfinding? And do we have anything or ordinance that speaks to size, font, language, format, colors, things of that nature that, like here you're looking at, it seems like a certain font, certain language, certain style, a vertical, or is there an approval and then you ultimately have something that's altogether different than what's with the testimony? Well, there is no real testimony, and it's on what exactly it is. I guess it's for to be announced tenant. I'm just trying to
To my
understand that
knowledge,
piece.
it's a percentage. It's a percentage of building. It's a percentage of coverage.
Yes, I can respond, and I know Ernie's looking at the ordinance, and he has the citation in his report on page 6, where he quotes the ordinance, which is each principal building may have one wall sign, not to exceed 15% of the principal facade area or 80 square feet, whichever is smaller. Your ordinance also has language that limits the number of colors in a sign to no more than 4. So again, that final detail isn't presented. However, we're indicating that we're going to comply with both of those requirements for the area and for the color. We're asking the relief to have one sign on the front and one sign on the side.
Okay.
Anyone else from the board? Thank you.
We're going to call Mr. Kennel.
Good to see you again.
Same here.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, please state your name, spell your last for the record.
Scott Kennel, Kennel, with McDonough and Ray Associates, located at 1431 Lakewood Road, Manasquan.
And your credentials have also previously been accepted by this board?
Yes, they have, as a
Madam
traffic
Chair.
expert, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Kennel, your office prepared the traffic and transportation analysis, which is referred to in the reports from January of 2024?
There was a report from January
And then you've
24.
updated it since?
I have updated that,
Okay.
correct.
So can you tell the board what you did to prepare that report and what conclusions you reached?
And this report is, qualifies a traffic statement. Given the small size of the building, the small traffic generation, we did not do current traffic counts or a level of service analysis, and that's generally accepted by Ocean County for a development this size. But we did review historical traffic data adjacent to the site, for example, on Brewers Bridge Road, and that data indicated that the two-way traffic flow along the site frontage is approximately 600 vehicles during the morning peak hour and approximately 1,000 vehicles during the PM peak hour. And Brewers Bridge Road in this section, again, is under municipal control and has a posted speed limit of 35 miles per hour. The proposed office building, we consulted with the Institute of Transportation Engineers, trip generation manual, trip rates. For a building of this size, it's projected that during the peak hour, again, as you know from prior testimony, we look at a 60-minute period, that a building of this size would generate approximately 7 to 8 trips during the peak hour. It's because it's assumed that people arrive and depart over a 2 to 3 hour period for this type of use. And then as far as site traffic orientation, we're expected based on the existing roadway network, existing traffic volume patterns, that basically 50% of the site traffic will be oriented to and from the north, and 50% to and from the south having access to County Line Road. Graham had spent some testimony on spent time and testified as to the site plan, and as he indicated, the parking supply meets and exceeds the township ordinance with 22 spaces, and one of those spaces being an EV space. The other item that reviewed was the operational characteristics of the site driveway, and that relates to site distance. For Brewers Bridge Road in this area, a site distance of 305 feet is required. Again, that's based on the speed limit. And based on my measurements, the critical sight line is to the north, and we have approximately 350 feet. So we meet and exceed what's recommended for stopping site distance for a private driveway onto Brewers Bridge Road. As far as circulation, we're providing the emergency access, again, to satisfy the comments from the Fire Bureau. So in my opinion, this site, from a circulation standpoint, has been designed and is acceptable to accommodate the passenger vehicles as well as the large wheelbase vehicles that'll serve the site. In essence, that completes my direct.
And did you come to the conclusion that the drive, you referred to it, but the driveway itself will operate safely and efficiently?
That is correct.
Okay, that's all we have, Mr. Kennel.
Any questions from the board? Open it to residents.
Do you have an architect or? Not present, no. Not present?
But Graham was going to speak to the client about the question.
I was just
on
about to
colors.
ask that.
Yeah, so when we'll call him back up, there were a couple of open items.
You want to open up the cross-examination, and then we'll let,
Correct.
okay. All right. Anybody who has any questions for cross-examination purposes of these two experts, now would be the time. From the public. All right.
Hi,
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, please state your name and spell your last for the record.
Thomas Sanitate, Sanitate,
And your address?
744 Rose Bridge.
Okay.
I'm within the 200 feet of the building. I'm having a hard time understanding why these variances are considered a hardship. I mean, the applicant is a very experienced real estate developer. He knew the size of the lots when he purchased them 5 years ago.
Hang on. So now is the time to ask their experts any questions. Yeah, general comment will come next.
Okay, I can come back.
Okay.
Do I have to be sworn in again?
Any questions for these two gentlemen who have given testimony?
No.
Thank you. Anyone else from the audience who would like to ask testimony questions?
Seeing nobody from the public approaching for cross-examination, move to close cross-examination only.
All in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, now, anyone who has general questions, please come forward. It's procedural, that's all. Thank you.
So my question was about the bulk variance and why is it considered a hardship? The applicant is a very experienced real estate developer. He knew the size of the lot when he purchased them 5 years ago. He should know about zoning laws and what can be built on that land. This building design exceeds the allowable space by nearly double what our law provides. Why is this a hardship and not a self-created hardship?
So the law is not whether the applicant knew or should have known about the variance issues. The law is that the property itself has a hardship in that it's deficient in land area. It's not, so the hardship exists because the lot is less than an acre, and the applicant attempted to bring the lot closer to conformity by attempting to purchase contiguous properties and wasn't able to do so. So that's the hardship. Your comment about double the size of the property, a building, that's not correct, right? We're not asking for, we have a slight coverage variance.
Correct. We have a slight variance for impervious lot coverage, which I had, testified to.
And that was driven by the addition of the emergency driveway, not the size of the building or the parking lot or the primary driveway.
So basically, if you buy a piece of land and you know the size of it, you can just build basically anything you want on it as long as you get a variance?
So what
It's not
happens?
that simple, but yeah.
It's, so all the variances is basically you're asking some kind of quasi judicial board for relief, right? So it's almost like asking them a question, right? So, or asking them for an exception from something. So that's what a variance kind of means in layman's terms. So with this type of variance, what the applicant's doing is coming before the board saying that based upon the irregular shape of the property, the fact that the lots are very, very narrow and they're consolidating a whole bunch of them. The narrowness, the shallowness, the depth, and the fire lanes, the irregular positioning of the property warrants itself a hardship, or else they wouldn't be able to construct anything else there that they were looking to do. So that's what, so they're asking for an exception from the ordinance standards based upon the shallowness and narrowness and topographical features of the piece of property.
And it's not self-created just for the fact they're buying a small piece of land?
So self-created hardship would be like a financial hardship, or would be something when they're coming in and there's numerous uses, and what they're seeking clearly doesn't fit into like a kind of a round circle into a square hole type situation, right? In this situation, they have a use that's permitted in the zone. It's just because of the irregular shape of the property, they have to seek this type of variance, or else they can't get approval to build.
Okay.
Yeah.
In its self-created nature, the applicant did not create this lot and the configuration. The lot existed, he bought it as is. So that there's no self-created hardship as it relates to the character of the lot.
And I just wanted to point out, and that's probably just a typo, but on most of your maps and plans, lot 71 is missing. It looks like the building is on lot 71. Right there, they start at lot 72. Oh. So the property starts at lot 72, but on the maps, it looks like lot 71 is not there.
I think we have a lot misnumbered on the site plan. I see it here, it actually says lot 70, but that's lot 71.
Okay, so it's just.
If you look at this aerial map, that shows the correct lot numbers, 72, 3, 4, 5, 6 that are part of the application.
I just wanted to. point it
Yes,
out.
that's something we'll clean up, of course.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, anyone else? Anyone else from the audience would like to speak?
Seeing no one else approaching the microphone for public comment, make a motion to close public comment on this application.
All in favor? Thank you.
So there were a couple open points during the course of Mr. McFarland's testimony, and during the break, he had a chance to speak to the applicant. So Graham, would you report back to the board on the answers, please?
Yes, one question related to the colors. We've lost the building, but the building will be, is proposed to be a gray tone using several variations or shades of gray. That's the answer I could give to you right now. Nothing else has been proposed or considered at this time, so it would be, neutral gray tone buildings, and again, mostly concrete and glass, of course. The board asked about the interest in providing an elevator. My client is not excited about providing an elevator for the building. His opinion is that for a professional office, it really is not warranted. If it was medical office, it would be certainly be more warranted for that type of use. But for the professional office, as defined by your ordinance, again, which excluding the medical component, he does not feel that there's enough of a benefit to construct the elevator with this application.
And the signage question?
The signage question, frankly, we didn't get to. No, I think the question was related to the ground sign, whether you would be comfortable not having the ground sign in front of the building and move it to the back of the site just as a directory sign instead. My opinion was that the ground sign is advantageous for identification, and some board members had a little different opinions, so we're trying to sort that out.
I mean, the address should suffice. So people are looking for an address, they're going
Yeah,
to the address.
the applicant would agree to eliminate the freestanding sign and put a directory sign behind the building. And in consideration for that, we would request the variance relief for the second facade sign.
Sign would be in the rear.
Yes.
Right. So the sign variance is gone then?
The
We need-
ground sign
The ground sign, okay.
variance would be omitted. That ground sign would be omitted. A directory sign would be added someplace in the rear of the site, complying with ordinance requirements. We're still looking for the two building signs, one on the front, one on the side. And again, no more than 4 colors and comply with any area requirements.
So that would be a variance for one of the two potential signs.
Correct. Ordinance allows one sign per principal building.
Any other questions from the board? Mr. Marzo?
What would the size of the building be to be variance-free?
Well, I don't know the exact answer, but again, I spoke earlier, and maybe we can get the site plan back up on the screen. And you can see the building envelope shown on the plan with this dashed line. So the building envelope, just by its area, there's enough building envelope to change the configuration of the building. But what that would result in is taking the building, pushing it back, and then providing parking in front of the building and parking behind the building, to me would be a much less attractive design. As to the nature or the level of intensity proposed with this application, we have a building of 4,400 square feet that satisfies the parking requirements. And even given the need to have this parking with a very long driveway, parking way behind, and that fire access lane, we're only 600 feet over the impervious coverage for a lot which certainly has presented several design challenges.
So one of the things that's keeping this building from being compliant is that we've added that fire safety driveway, which takes up a considerable amount of impervious coverage.
Correct.
All right, that helps the board to see the issue. Thank you. Mr. Riker.
So to sum it up, your applicant is willing to spend several $100,000 on another lot, but not put a 6 by 10 or an 8 by 10 addition on the outside of the building, with the board potentially waiving that additional square footage for an outside staircase. And then I'm looking at the parking, and there's no fire suppression under it, and I see that you're going to kick the can down the road on the fire suppression, but the entry door is in that concealed space. So if you have a fire and you want to get out that way, you're going to get a burn. That's the way I'm looking at this project. You're willing to spend several $100,000 on a lot, but you're not willing to do a few other things. Correct me if I'm wrong on it, but
Well,
that's.
just so you understand, that's not the only entry door. I know you see that door on this plan. There's also a door at the front.
Do you get a choice in the fire?
I'm sorry?
Do you get a choice what door you want to run out of in a fire?
Well, it complies with,
always. Not
it
always.
complies with the building code.
Well, that's great. So you're telling me, as a planner, that without fire suppression, to have an exit and entry door in a garage space that's non-sprinklered, non-protected, is a good idea. Am I missing something, Mr. Tremor? Because when that cooks, it's like a broiler.
Anybody else? Would you like to sum it up for us, please, Mr. Alfieri?
Yes, I believe we've satisfied the necessary proofs for the variance relief due to the undersized nature of the lot and the geometry of the lot, and our inability to acquire land to make the lot more conforming. We've agreed to address all the technical comments contained within the board professionals' reports. We've agreed, obviously, to comply. And this board doesn't have the power to grant relief, but we agreed to comply with all the building code issues, which is not a planning board function, including at fire safety. We've agreed to address the fire safety issues raised by the fire official, and then we've agreed to eliminate that one sign variance. And otherwise, I think this is probably the best you're going to do for this lot, considering the size and the geometry. It's a very small building with minimal impact on the streets and the community.
Just to be clear, you guys you're agreeing to comply with all the fire safety comments, correct?
Correct.
All right.
And that report was last dated June 26, 2024.
Okay. That's the one I'm looking at.
All right, we'll entertain a motion, please.
But so before we get to that point, let me just address what we're, actually, do the board professionals?
Anything else from the board professionals?
Just quickly, and I think Grammy might have testified to it. If we didn't have the impervious emergency access, would you be under the coverage?
Yes, it would be below by several percent easily.
3%.
And you're going to consolidate the lots?
Correct.
And do we have any cut and fill numbers?
We don't have those yet, but we'll comply with ordinance requirements.
And no improvements to Lewis
Correct.
Street?
Correct.
And you'd pay into the fund?
I guess technically we do have frontage on Lewis, so we would have to pay curb and sidewalk
Okay, thank you.
fees.
Thank you, Mr. Peters.
All right, so just to be clear, this is what the board is voting on. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 C1 variances with a sign variance as well. So with what the applicants put on the record, the legal standard for a C1 variance is hardship variance, and you have to look at the shape, the irregular shape of the property, the narrowness, the shallowness, the topographical condition of the property. You have to look at the positive aspects of the application, and then you have to look at the negative, if it violates any negative criteria. So in this case, the applicant's indicating that there is no substantial detriment to the public good for these hardships being approved, and that there is the granting of the variances will not substantially impair the intent and purpose of the zone plan and the ordinances. Right. So when you're looking at these legal tests, that's what you have to balance. So based upon the testimony that was provided, based upon the legal test that was put on record, based upon these several variances, that's what you're going to be voting on.
We're looking for a motion, please.
This motion that you're looking for is just on the variances, the whole lot. Okay.
Mr.
Yeah,
Bernstein, or Mr. I couldn't hear who put on his mic.
I did.
Mr. Breslin.
It's not a very thrilling application, all the variants and so forth. But when you hear the attorney's testimony, what the C1 is and how you come about it, I know where the gentleman's coming with the question, how is not a self-inflicted C1, but this happens in land use and it's in the right area for it. It's just how the lots are. And given the input from our attorney and our professionals and the testimony to why it's a C1 is a hardship, I'll make a motion to approve it.
Looking for a second.
Second, Heller?
We'll have a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Brezzi?
Yes.
Mr. Bernstein?
Yes. Yes.
Ms. DeMarzo?
Yes.
Mr. Heller?
Yes.
Mr. Riker?
It's my better judgment, yes.
Ms. Rose? Yes. Mr. Tremor?
No, because I feel it needs to go back to the fire officials, so I'm a no at this point.
Mr. Wall?
Yeah, no, sorry.
And Dr. Campbell?
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Ms. Jennings, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. For the record, I'm Donna Jennings from the law firm of Williams, Goldman & Spitzer. On behalf of the applicant, as the board will recall, we were back here on May 20th, and we had essentially completed 2 of our witnesses, but unfortunately, Mr. Kennel had a personal emergency and was not able to make it to the meeting. So we were left with just Mr. Kennel's traffic testimony. So if we could at this time, bring him up, and we'll go through that now.
You again.
Yes,
You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
All right, please state your name and spell your last for the record.
Scott Kennel, Kennel, with McDonough and Ray Associates. Office is located at 1431 Lakewood Road, Manasquan.
And
We
Mr.
accept.
Kennel, just for the record, nothing's changed since you were just sworn in with respect to your credentials, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Another day wiser.
Yes.
If you could, just for the benefit of the board, confirm that your office prepared a traffic analysis report on this project?
Yes, with the revised date of November 30, 2023.
Okay, and if you could just briefly go through your findings on that.
Yes. So as part of the traffic study that was submitted with this application, The first stage or phase is to do an inventory of existing conditions, including review of traffic data. We utilize traffic counts that were conducted in November of 2022. They included manual counts adjacent to the site, as well as the installation of automatic traffic recording devices where we had 7 days of traffic counts on an hourly basis. As far as the proposed shul and traffic projections, we had based the traffic projections based on a number of parking spaces that's required, and we assume that the morning and afternoon peak hour will generate approximately 120 trips. That, in our opinion, is a overestimation based on input we had from the applicant and review of information provided by the applicant. And basically, based on the location of the shul, we assume that site traffic would be oriented basically 50-50, 50% to and from the north, 50% to and from the south. Consistent with the Ocean County Planning Board protocol, we had established a design year of 2033, where we consulted the NJDOT traffic growth data and assigned a 10% growth rate to the base traffic volumes. In addition, there are site-specific developments that had been approved and considered in the analysis. There is a elementary school just to the north, opposite Summer, that was approved approximately 18 months ago. So we included the traffic counts from that development. And then to the north, in the vicinity of County Line Road, within the jug handle, there was an existing office building, and then they submitted and it was approved for, again, a redevelopment of a larger office building. We included the site traffic from that development. And this site, as was testified by the site engineer, is going to have access, two means of access: direct access to Brewers Bridge Road, and then also a secondary access to Holden Court. In doing our analysis, we assumed all the traffic would just utilize the Brewers Bridge Road access in order to perform a worst-case conservative analysis.
Just if we could pause for 1 second and maybe bring up A3 so the board knows what they're looking at and the public.
This is Exhibit A3. And again, as I mentioned earlier, this site will be served by 2 access drives, a 2-way driveway to Brewers Bridge at the northerly property line, and then a secondary access out to Holden Court. In our analysis, again, considered all traffic entering and exiting versus Brewers Bridge Road to provide a conservative analysis. And it was determined that the site driveway would operate at a level service C for exiting movements onto Brewers Bridge Road, well within acceptable traffic engineering parameters. In doing that analysis, we also determined what is the maximum Q, or the 95th percentile Q, and this will address a couple of design waivers we have relative to the driveway throat. And based on the analysis, the 95th percentile Q would be 1 vehicle, which would account for approximately, say, 20 to 25 feet. And where the ordinance recommends 60 feet, My analysis indicates that having a shorter driveway throughout will not have a negative impact on the on-site operation, and that the 95th percentile queue is one vehicle. So in my opinion, relief can be granted for the driveway throat length. As it relates to the site plan, as I stated, there is 2 points of access. So we optimized access to this site for not only passenger vehicles, but for emergency type vehicles to the site. There are 68 spaces required. We're providing 65 physical spaces, and 6 of those, which are EV spaces, and with the DCA credit, equates to 71 parking spaces. So therefore, we comply with the ordinance based on the 2-for-1 credit allowed by DCA. The internal aisle widths are 24 feet and can accommodate two-way traffic, and also can accommodate large wheelbase vehicles, more specifically refuse or emergency vehicles that would have to serve the site. The site driveway, specifically on Brewers Bridge Road, is located at a location that provides more than adequate site distance, exceeding the recommended standards. So in summary, the site plan has been designed to provide parking in compliance with the ordinance. The site driveway has been designed, in my opinion, to operate efficiently and safely, and with minimal impact on the adjacent roadway system.
The direct testimony of Mr. Kennel.
Anyone from the public wish to ask questions of Mr. Kennel or make reference to his testimony may come forward now.
Seeing no members of the general public approach the microphone for cross-examination only of this witness, make a motion to close.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Any board comments on this project? We will. Okay. That was the comments for the witness. Now, any public members wish to comment on this project may come forward.
Seeing no members of the general public approach the microphone for general comments on this application and this application only, make a motion to close.
All in favor?
You're getting off easy tonight, guys.
Trying.
We're softening you up.
Yeah, exactly.
Any comments from the board? Any comments from the professionals? Mr. Klee? Mr. Peters? Thank you, gentlemen. We'll look for a motion on the project then, please.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the project.
I will second that. Heller?
Roll call, please.
Mr. Brezzi?
Yes.
Mr. Bernstein? Yes. Mr. Marzo?
Yes.
Mr. Heller?
Yes.
Mr. Tremor?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
And Dr. Campbell?
Yes, congratulations.
I think we made a record there. Thank you so much. Have a great night.
We'll entertain a motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.